Hello, my name is Brianna Sinclair. This is my 13th week on hormones, or HRT. My quick measurements update. My hips are 34 and a quarter, my bust is 34 and 5/8, and my waist is 25 and a half. So my measurements from last week to this week haven't changed, so I do think that my bust measurement is starting to be more indicative of the growth that I feel in my chest, because my chest does still hurt a little bit. It is starting to subside a little bit, and I think that's mostly due to my levels kind of tapering off, which is fine. Sorry, Finney's over here. He's gonna join me. He's kind of like watching over me right now, but what are you doing? Please don't. Please don't. What are you doing? He's a little goober. But anyway, please don't scratch my dress. Please don't. So yes, that's it for my measurements. My emotional range hasn't really changed a whole lot, and so I think that's kind of me, getting used to how, my emotions are gonna be, kind of at this level. Sorry, I've got like a hair in my mouth. There we go. And that's perfectly fine with me. Initially, my emotional range was kind of like all over the place because I couldn't really get sad. I could get sad, I just couldn't like truly feel my emotions as much as I can now. But I have a pretty good grasp on all my emotions except me being sad. If I'm sad, I'm gonna be sad. I can usually hide like anger and rage, and initially I couldn't because I really didn't have to feel things like that. So it was very new for me, and seeing as how I have significantly more control in my emotions, it's kind of a good change for me. So my measurements do kind of prove that I'm not really experiencing hardly any fat redistribution, and I haven't really noticed any. I still am kind of like looking forward to it because I know that that's going to take a little while to develop, especially for me to see it, because I do try and eat a little bit more so that way my body has something to work with, for my breasts, for my fat redistribution, and yeah. My my sex drive is kind of like, I think, leveled off as well. I think it's back to where it was and which initially it dropped for a little bit, and it's kind of back up to its old self. So, needless to say, I'm kind of annoyed because it just takes me more time to like do things, and it's not fun in that aspect, just because everything takes a little while. But it is what it is, and that is no reason to like, it's no reason for me to at least be upset about my transition thus far. I'm thoroughly enjoying my transition in everything. Um, um, let's see. I have started to try and like figure out how to do my brows a little bit better because they were initially a little bit bushy. I went and got them like fixed up, as it was a suggestion. So there. In all seriousness, no. Though there's not really a whole lot of change between this week and last week, except for my emotional range is starting to level off, and I mostly attribute my lack of changes to my levels. I feel like they're kind of stable right now, which is good. I did get cleared for my levels to be raised. However, I have to get through my current prescription, which is the current month supply that I have now, and I think I've only got like 3 weeks left, and then I start my new regimen, which from my endocrinologist should be 3 of each, 3 spironolactone, and then 3 estradiol pills. I take like a little blue pill for my estradiol and a significantly larger white pill for my spironolactone. And those are my hormones. And she's just increasing the amount I take per day to, instead of 2 of each a day, I take 3 of each a day. To raise my estrogen levels and drop my testosterone levels. My estrogen levels were at a 66. I don't know what they were beforehand, because I don't remember her telling me. But she said as long as they don't reach 100, I should be fine. And I just don't know what part of that 66 was already there, because men and women naturally, well, obviously women, but men naturally have estrogen in their bodies, just like women naturally have testosterone. The levels are just different. And that's something I neglected to catch, is that my levels beforehand, because I had my levels checked back in like November of 23, and I just wasn't able to start my hormones until like 13 weeks ago, actually, because it is my 13th week video, because there was a lot of paperwork I had to get routed, and that got lost, so I had to reroute it. But she did say as long as my testosterone didn't drop below 200, I should be good there, and I think I'm okay. Because I can still function relatively adequately, well, not relatively, very adequately. I do get tired, as you can see from my last video. I get exhausted, very significantly easier, and my muscle mass has massively decreased, just because I don't really lift a whole lot of heavy things, and I don't have the testosterone level I used to have that would exacerbate my muscle development and kind of like keep it where it needs to be. Having said that, I can still lift all the things I used to, with the exception of a couple things. I just can't lift them as many times. So there is that. Those are pretty much all the changes I've experienced. I am really excited because it is 13 weeks, and last week was my 3-month point, which was a quarter of the way to, I think, me scheduling my FFS, if not like having it. And that's what I wanted to do: FFS first, BBL next, and then breast augmentation, because my breast augmentation would be the final I guess signature point where I am able to live full time and nobody really has an excuse to misgender me. Other than my voice, I mean, my voice is obviously very masculine still. Having said that, I do try and like feminize it all on my own with some voice therapy and stuff like that I'm trying to do in like my car rides to work, and stuff like that. Any moment I really have time, because I would just want to live my life as a woman. The rest of it, at least. Because I spent the first almost 30 years as a boy confused and not fully knowing who I was and what I wanted to be, let alone do. And at first I kind of like moved into like, maybe I'm just a femboy or something like that. Maybe I'm just like a little cross-dresser, and stuff like that. But it became so much more than that. The more I buried it, the worse it became, because every time it would come back, it would be just this crazy urge that wasn't a fantasy. It was more like whenever I would cross-dress or plan makeup, it was like the end of suffering for me. It was peaceful, it was nice, it was happy. And there was not much that could make me happier at the time. Not much at all. I couldn't even take pictures of myself growing up. The only person that ever had any pictures of me was my mother. At least by myself. I would be in like group photos, but even on my phone I only ever had 2. Yeah. And then whenever I got married, the amount of pictures I had with me in them increased, because I wanted those pictures with my wife, because she was my family at the time, and well, still is. And it's just so much more than that to go to. But whenever I would cross-dress and do my full face, I felt the courage to be able to just take a picture of myself, only for me. Never for nobody else but me, and that's what made me so happy. It was just the feeling, and I would capture that moment in like a picture. And time went on, and I would keep trying to bury my feelings and needs to cross-dress. And yeah. And yeah. One thing led to another. I didn't start looking at transgender people to figure out I was trans. I knew 2 of them growing up. There were 2 trans men that I knew. Yeah, I didn't fully understand, because I was in high school in a very redneck town, and their pronouns were very hard for me to get, because I knew them I knew them so long, as the names that they were, as the genders that they were. It was hard for me to go back, so I defaulted to calling them by their names, because it was making me mad that I was coming off as disrespectful without even trying. And because I know how that feels, I don't fully judge people on what they say as far as like my pronouns, even especially whenever I'm dressed up in makeup, because most of the time I get he, my voice kind of like betrays me and says I'm a boy. And and so I wouldn't call them he, because I would usually call them she, unfortunately. So I would just call them by their names. I would apologize after every time I would get their pronouns wrong. I would do my best to not make that same mistake, but it was really hard because they were longtime friends of mine that I had no idea were trans men. I just thought they were very strong and independent women. But years went by after high school, and I would meet my wife, who I didn't really care was transgender. She just was. And to me, she was a woman because I didn't know her before her transition, so I would always just call her she. And that's what she's always been to me. She's been she. And in trying to be prepared for her surgeries and stuff, because her first surgery, I had no idea what was going on. I thought because it seemed very simple, I didn't need to do a whole lot of research, and I was wrong. So after her first one, I started doing all the research I could into her surgeries because I wanted to make sure she was okay. I wanted to be knowledgeable and have the initiative to make sure that she was okay. Because if something happened, I would never forgive myself that I didn't take the time to learn this one simple thing. And that'd be that. Losing her was not worth that for me. And in doing so, I did kind of run into like little videos and stuff like that on like how people knew. I would listen to like how my wife knew and stuff like that because I was curious about it. And listening to some of their testimonies, because I did kind of have like my little cross-dressing problem. At the time, I did start to make some connections, and I was like, there's still probably a chance I'm just a femboy or a little cross-dresser. There's still a strong chance of that. And one day I just kind of sat down and were like, okay, what makes me think this way? What makes me think that I could be a transgender woman? What makes me think that that's what I've been kind of trying to figure out? And I made my list of all the reasons that I think that I could be a transgender woman. I presented that list to my wife, and she excuse me. She said, "Yeah, you probably are transgender." I didn't want to believe it because the fear that sent down my spine was insane. Because in realizing that I was starting to figure out that I was transgender, I knew a lot of things were going to change. Not necessarily with me, but with how people deal with me. Whenever I go out right now, most people see me as a boy, so I have different expectations than if I went out as a girl. Um, so yeah. Those expectations are not what I wanted. I wanted to be treated like a girl by everyone. Um, Not just like close family. And that's what I wanted. And there were signs even from whenever I was like in junior high and younger, definitely younger, that I should have started my transition a long, long time ago. I just buried it underneath work and projects and school, trying to move on, get one thing after another done, trying to get everything all situated, because I was always like in this mindset that if I push a little harder, I can figure it out later. And I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. I would bury it, and then at some point it would just come back, and it was well over twice as strong every time I buried it and it came back. It usually kind of started out with me wearing my mom's shoes whenever she wasn't there. She caught me whenever I was a little kid and kind of thought I would grow out of it to an extent. I guess I did. I just got in a lot of trouble whenever I was a kid and knew that I shouldn't go in mom and dad's room. So that kind of put an end to me trying to wear her shoes. And I remember she had these, they were probably like shin-high boots on her, like mid-shin, but because I was so little, they were like thigh-high boots on me, which is fine. Once they were on me, I could not get up. I do remember having that trouble, but I do remember like just kind of sitting there looking at my feet and being so happy with like the wearing these shoes. Whenever she banned me, kind of years would go by, and I was with my first girlfriend. The first time somebody ever saw me cross-dressing actually was her, and I kind of thought it would be fun, because I don't know, I just kind of thought it would be fun to do. And initially it started out as like a joke or a surprise. And so I put on her clothes, she came in the room and was mortified. Just absolutely terrified. And it kind of shocked me, and I did feel very ashamed of it at the time, so I didn't do it for a while. And then I kind of just came back, and I would just kind of cross-dress in private whenever nobody was around. And I eventually broke up with her. Just because I took a look at myself and didn't think I would be happy. I didn't know what I wanted at the time. From then on, after her, I dated a boy who was a cross-dresser. Our first date, he came out in a wig, makeup, a full outfit, and looked very cute. And that was that. I was not a fan just because we fell apart. Months went down the line and we fell apart. And I would meet my now wife, who would become, well, my next girlfriend, who would then become my wife. I would cross-dress in private, and again, I wanted to be able to cross-dress like around her. So I can't remember if she caught me or if I told her, but she did not like. 10 out of 10, did not like. But eventually, she kind of started to see it, and sometimes whenever we would go out, we started to like get me clothes and stuff like that. We would get me cute little tops, we would get me some leggings, and I remember the first skirt she ever got me, I was so thrilled, because I wanted these hyper feminine clothes, because I didn't feel feminine. I just kind of felt displaced, but whenever I would put them on, I would feel feminine, I would be happy. And it was wonderful. She didn't want to see it, because I knew she wanted me to still be her husband. And if she came home and caught me, the protocol was I would change, essentially, and we would resume like nothing happened. Time went by, and she ended up getting me my first breastplate, along with my first hip pads and my first butt pads, to kind of fill me out, give me shape, and help me figure things out. I don't really wear my breastplate a whole lot because I'm growing my own, and I do sometimes wear it because I can't wait to have my own fully developed set of breasts, and I wear my hip pads and butt pads because, like, all the time, almost every day, because the shape of my hips and my butt has been a problem with me for a long time, and I just have never really liked it. And oh Lord, excuse me, sorry. It was another long day, and I've started to like quit caffeine. But walking through my wife's transition with her and seeing what plastic surgery can do, I'm excited to be able to finally change how my hips and my butt are and actually have the shape I want permanently. I'm not 100% sure when that'll happen because my family and I have problems gaining weight even if we don't want to. Most of my family's severely underweight. I'm like 134 pounds at 5'9". A big girl. But that's pretty much it. And then one thing led to another, and here I am. Still perfectly happily married, still, well, not still, but starting my transition and becoming the woman I was always meant to be. I know there's a long period of time between now and my FFS, but every time I sit down and make one of these videos, it just makes me excited for it because it's one more video away from me having my FFS. And I know that that'll help my dysphoria a lot because it's kind of like what other people see and view me as, because we have subtle differences in our face that we pick up on subconsciously that kind of depict whether we're a man or a woman. Oh, excuse me. And those are supposed to, for the most part, be changed. And that way I can look a little bit more feminine. I think finally getting my breast augmentation. Of course I would want my breast augmentation like tomorrow, but I don't want to. I have enough trouble kind of trying to hide like my boobs with the clothes that I wear right now, because they're obviously not pectorals, because pectorals kind of have like this like little square shape. I've got like this teardrop shape kind of going on like here portion of like my body, which is kind of where they are. And yeah, I think that's enough for it this week. I think next week I might jump in and make a video regarding all the reasons I knew how to transition. All the reasons I knew I should transition. To be more precise, it did take me a while to explain, because I think there's like 13 different things on there. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but there's scenarios that most, I don't think, really go through. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed my videos, and I hope you're all enjoying my journey. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I would rather, like, somebody ask a question and them get an answer than for them to just suffer in silence. And if I don't know the answer, I will be more than happy to go about looking for the answer as well. This is Brianna Sinclair.